call this meeting of Lake Country Classical Academy to order at 6:01 on Wednesday, August 17th, 2022. In accordance with Wisconsin's open meetings law, the required public notice of this meeting ran in the August 11 issue of the Waukesha Freeman, and the required meeting agenda was also posted on the LCCA website. Beginning next month, we will resume posting the notice of all board meetings at both campuses as well. And please let the roll call show that all board members of the LCCA board are present. So please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, there's two. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, agenda approval. Everyone should have received a copy of the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda?
I so move.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Ready for a vote? All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. Next item up is Citizens Forum. Tom, is anyone from the audience want to make any comment?
There were not, but just to double check, would you like to? Of course.
Sure.
You can fill this out after you give your comments.
Perfect. All right. Hi, I'm Erica Urban. Do you need address or anything like that, or I don't know what you guys do. Okay. So I just wanted to take one split second of your time to let you know I have two children here at LCCA and then one in sport. I've been dealing with a local school district outside of here, and the chaos that has disrupted children's minds is absolutely heartbreaking. So I wanted to take time to thank you guys for doing, I'm gonna get all sappy, but thank you for doing everything that you have for providing amazing education from like my children, our children. It's so amazing to see how much work you guys have done to provide that for our family. So I just wanna let you know it's dramatic on the other side, and it feels so good being here. So thank you. Thank you for, I've noticed all of you, so that's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
On to the next item, which is consent agenda, approval of minutes from the July 20th, 2020 regular board meeting. Everyone should have received a copy of the minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So motion by Tim.
Second?
I'll second.
Tom second. Any discussion?
I just have one point of clarification to the section for the mobile classroom. The fourth bullet point, it says Tom and Gail moved approval of $316,973 for completion of the entire project. I would just suggest inserting the word additional. Tom and Gail moved approval of additional $316,973 because the board had previously approved an amount getting us to the total budget of $427.
Thank you for catching that, Brian.
We'll make that.
Accept that as a friendly amendment, Tim?
Yes.
Yep.
I think it's pretty friendly.
Pretty friendly.
And more importantly, appropriate.
Yeah.
Oh, good catch.
Any further discussion? So it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes from July 20th with the friendly amendment of adding the word additional to section 4 of the mobile classroom action item. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. And the motion passes.
Christine, I'll send you a modified minutes tomorrow
Okay.
morning.
Great, thank you. On to discussion items. So Margaret, leadership report.
Thank you. To fill you in on the last month, the two school goals that are focus are in progress and focus of this board report are regarding professional development and our performance measures as it relates to our authorizer. Our Hillsdale partnership will be strong this month in the sense that the Literacy Essentials trainer is coming to present to our teachers next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. She'll be in town presenting on the Literacy Essentials program and giving 2.5 full days of training to kindergarten through 6th grade teachers. Our partnership with WORKS, or the Wisconsin Resource Center for Charter Schools, was strong and influenced the work over the last month. We attended a representative of the board, Christina, and administration, myself and Nicholas Wagner attended the conference that WORKS puts on July 26th and 27th. We also consulted with WORKS in the revising of our performance measures, which were submitted and approved by DPI. Our enrollment status right now, as of today, we have an offer pending. 3 students are in registration in progress and 1 student is in the registration complete stage of enrollment, and 511 students are fully verified. So at 516 will be full to start the school year on September 6th, with currently 263 still on the wait list in kindergarten through 8th grade. Some of the contracts that are in motion this month, we are diligently still working to configure, set up, and now train the teachers in the implementation of our new student information system, Skyward. We are enrolling and registering new families to the Carpool to School app and promoting that within the school community. We've hired a janitorial and cleaning service, and they started last week and refinished actually the floors at East. Was their first major project, and we're very pleased with how that went. And then our contract with Central Office System has been ongoing all summer. They are rewiring and networking so that we can install more cameras and a PA system and all the things that are also tied into the mobile classrooms project. We are also continuing progress in investigating the ESSER 3 grant funding. We hosted a presentation to parents and stakeholders on July 22nd to present the required material in the process of moving forward in that application process. As far as academics and student life, we are in the Student Services Department scheduled to meet with families and adopt IEPs of newly enrolled students starting on August 29th. We have a couple days that week that are set aside for those meetings. We've updated the Special Education Policies and Procedures document, which is up for approval elsewhere in our agenda, as well as the 504 ADA policy, which is up for approval elsewhere in our agenda. Our standardized testing results will be distributed to parents at open house on September 1st. I actually do see a typo in my notes to clarify. The ACT Aspire results will be distributed to parents of 9th grade students, and the forward results will be distributed to parents of 3rd through 8th grade students when they come for open house on September 1st. And just today, we received approval from the WIAA. They've accepted our application and we are officially in probationary status, which is great news because we started cross country on Monday. So we have 4 student athletes participating on the cross country team this fall, and all things as far as athletics are up and running, and we're on our way as far as approval with WIAA. So that's really exciting. We pushed out our after school enrichment class registration on August 1st, and we have families signing up their kids for all of the different opportunities that we're providing after school. Our after school enrichment program includes some outside vendors, but also offerings that are mentored or advised by faculty or staff. So everything we're providing falls under the LCCA umbrella in the sense that it's a vetted and approved vendor who provides the class, or an employee who oversees the implementation of the class. We also pushed out elective selection, so 5th and 6th grade students can choose to participate in band and orchestra. That registration opened on August 12th and is due tomorrow on the 18th. 7th through and 8th grade students have the option to participate in band, orchestra, or choir. Same deadline to make a selection by August 18th. And then 9th and 10th grade students need to choose an elective, art or music, for their class schedule, and then also have the option to participate in band, orchestra, or choir, and that registration and selection is due by August 18th. Once we have all of that information, we'll finalize student schedules and build out rosters for class courses. The faculty and staff returned to work on Monday of this week, August 15th, and the preparation thus far this week included a focus on mission and philosophy, classical education. Christina represented the board and shared with our faculty and staff the story of LCCA. We've had training on walking through our employee handbook, which is up for approval elsewhere in the agenda as well. We have talked through policies and procedures at both buildings. We've had safety and security instruction from representatives of the Oconomowoc Police Department. We have math training on the agenda. We have a very full schedule over the next few weeks, and along with giving teachers time to be in their rooms and preparing and getting their classroom environments ready to welcome students. Matters of note as far as facilities are concerned, we are in the process of installing electrical outlets in the 4th grade classroom at East and the student services rooms in that building. We have completed the fix on the leaks in the roof, in the kindergarten 1st grade hallway, and some of the vents that were dripping during the rain. The new toilets installation has been complete. I actually videotaped the flushing of a toilet and showed it to the entire faculty to let them know one of the updates that has happened over the summer. It's quite funny. The driveway paving project, we're finalizing that this week. As I mentioned earlier, the floors, the tiles in the hallways and the 2nd and 3rd grade wing classrooms were stripped and waxed and polished. So they are looking fantastic. And we've begun to move into the basement of Holy Trinity Church on contingency until the mobile classrooms are ready. So we're having a space down there painted. We just moved down today 8-foot accordion style dividers, because we'll be partitioning off a large fellowship style lunchroom in the basement of that space into 2 classrooms. We've installed a copy machine down there. We have a box truck at our disposal on August 27th and are hoping we have an army of volunteers coming at 9 a.m. to help us transport 100 desks and chairs for students and 4 teacher desks and chairs and some shelving units and things from the East Gym down to the Holy Trinity basement. We are in the process of having the playground side doors repaired at East. They're already wired and set for a fob access to be installed there and 1 additional camera installation for view of the mobile classrooms once they're installed. So the doors that will be taken care of before the first day of school, and then we also have 1 set of doors here at West that is being upgraded, and the installation will also take place before the first day of school. We received our first order. I already spoke of the desks and chairs in the East Gym that need to be moved. A second order has been delayed and is expected the week of September 12th. That's some other classroom furniture, shelving units that we're in need of and will anticipate receiving in the month of September. We've received all of the lockers that were purchased, and installation of those is in progress here at West. We obviously need to wait for the mobile classrooms to be finalized before we can install some lockers in that unit. But We also have been working to expand the camera network, so there are more cameras now in this building, including the basement of this church, where we now will be using space down there. We have cameras installed there, and we have cameras installed on the second floor here. And we have additional cameras installed on the exterior at East, and we're waiting to install a few more once the pods are finalized within that area as well. We've also installed a PA system at East and expanded the PA system here at West into the spaces that we've acquired for use for this coming school year. As I mentioned before, the entire faculty and staff spent time with representatives of the Oconomowoc Police Department for training on safety and security measures, and we have outlined and walked all of the teachers through the protocols in place for a variety of safety and security measures. Lastly, the Human Resources Department has developed an employee handbook, and we consulted with our legal counsel on that matter and received her full support on the draft that you all received last week for approval today. And then lastly, we did have 3 people who had signed on to join us this year withdraw from their employment agreements just last week. So I do have a full-time sped paraprofessional position and a part-time special education paraprofessional position and a reading interventionist position open again as open positions I'm looking to fill for this coming school year. We were able to find, we enrolled a student with additional vision needs this school year, and we were able to find a company with whom we can contract to meet those needs as specified in that student's IEP. And finally, just some upcoming events to be aware of. I mentioned we have an open house on September 1st, and we will run that simultaneously at both campuses. Families will come to find out their student's teacher and have a walkthrough of the building, see their classrooms, drop off their supplies, and then we're eagerly anticipating the first day of school on September 6th. And this year, we're following up the open house and the first day of school with something we're calling Parents' Night. So parents are invited to return to school that evening for a presentation by administration and then a more specific conversation with teachers of their students or their children on expectations for the year, and we will host that at both campuses as well that evening. And that sums up my report for the month. Do you have any questions?
I thought you were gonna take time off. Very nice. So the 3 resignations were, I would gather, a surprise?
Yes, one I've never heard from, and we made 6 attempts to make contact and then essentially considered it a resignation. And the other 2, I simply received an email informing me that other opportunities had presented themselves that were more favorable either financially or to their family dynamic.
Were these new hires or returning?
Brand new hires, never actually,
Yeah.
I guess, were never actually employed because they never met their start date. So they withdrew from the agreement to start.
Got it. It's becoming, unfortunately, kind of typical of people in the workforce these days.
It was a new experience for me, so I must say I was a little disappointed at the way it rolled out, but
Yeah, I can certainly imagine. Well, and special ed is challenging on a good day. So now when you have to staff up, it's
interesting. I also received a survey from DPI specifically asking for data on my staffing needs and struggles. So what positions are still open in my district, what percentage of the positions are within these departments, and how many positions do I have yet to fill. So it seems to be a broader issue for the educational arena than just our personal experience.
Well, I've got a son who's got special needs. He has an extra chromosome. So people typically call that Down syndrome, but I just call that special. But he's given his schools a run for their money. He's run out the door. You can't lock the door. You got people to get out of the school. He's run out of the school. He's pulled the fire alarm. Fire trucks have shown up. So the funny thing about Charlie is whatever school he's attending at the time, after a year or two, everybody knows him, for better or for worse. But anyway, I digress. But I know special ed is a challenge and it's important. It's also a wonderful part of what we can do to help kids and parents.
How would you characterize the overall morale of returning staff after having 6-ish weeks off?
They seemed well rested and tan. No, they came back full of enthusiasm. We welcomed new staff members and faculty. There was time for socializing and mingling on the first day. And then we've gotten right to work. So I think they're rested, recuperated, and ready.
Clearly, there has been a lot of that work. Can you comment just briefly on the wait list? It seems a little smaller than what we knew a month or so ago. Did that just withdraw from the wait list, or how does that work?
We, with confirmation of the modular classrooms and the approval of the additional budget to finalize that project, I increased classroom capacity per in-grade levels.
Okay.
So I enrolled an additional 40, I'm forgetting the exact number,
Yeah.
47 seats I believe I opened.
Okay.
But not all of those offers were accepted.
I see.
So we did work our way through a portion of the wait list, which is why it is smaller in number. We have had some withdrawals, just families who were eagerly excited to come, but then for various reasons realized it just wasn't going to work for them, distance or, family dynamic. Not all of their children got in, and so they just couldn't figure out a way to make it work. So we have had also some withdrawals and then immediately offered those seats out as well.
Okay.
Any other questions for Margaret? Before we move on? Okay. All right, thank you. Next is the authorizer report, and I don't have a lot to say actually this time around, but just an update that we are working with the LCO Ojibwe College to provide feedback on our charter agreement that they recently approved to renew our charter with them, which will be a 5-year contract beginning July of 2023. So that will be, we have one more full year of the existing contract, at which point the new contract would kick in for another 5 years. So we're in the process of reviewing the existing contract and figuring out what modifications need to be made, and then we will work with their lawyer to finalize that. So stay tuned. That's going to be something we're working on in the next several months. That's all I have to say about the LCO Ojibwe College at this time. Unless there are any questions. It's great news. Okay. All right. Next item is recording LCCA regular board meetings. Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. It certainly has been the intention and strong desire of this board and Margaret to do all we can to ensure transparency and visibility to the dealings and governance and administration of LCCA. And it was mentioned at the last meeting by a parent who spoke in the Citizens Forum that it would be, and we also received some feedback via email, that it would be a great thing if we could somehow make these meetings via streaming or recording them and putting them up on YouTube or what have you. make them available to people. We obviously recognize that not everybody who would like to be here in person can be here in person. People have busy lives, people have commitments at night, people have, in some cases have long distances to drive. So we're delighted to share with you tonight that we have some board members did some investigation, talked to some experts. Long story short, we purchased a camera, and with the technical expertise of Tristan Knapp, who's in the back of the room, who was gracious enough to volunteer. He's got an interest in and a familiarity with this kind of thing, and we so appreciate your time, Tristan. So, as of tonight's meeting, we will be recording all open board meetings. We will not, of course, record any closed meetings for obvious reasons. It is our hope and intent to post this, or at least post a link to the video on the LCCA website. Please be patient on our first run through this. We think we know how to do it. We'll probably have it right pretty quickly. And then I'm sure once we know we have it right, Margaret will communicate to parents that this resource is available. We're delighted to do it. We're also delighted to know that we can do it at a relatively modest cost. The equipment, Tristan and perhaps some other people will volunteer to film it. Most public school districts, and we are a public charter school, that I know live stream or videotape their meetings, and it's a wonderful resource. That said, I will note that most of those districts have staff and ample resources dedicated to doing nothing but that. It took us a little bit longer perhaps to get here than it should have, but we're delighted to know that we can now present this, and we're confident that it will get a lot of use. So that's all I've got, unless other board members care to comment.
Nice job.
Okay, next item and discussion items is the FY 2021-2022 quarter 4 financial report. Ryan.
Plug in this. Here we go.
No problem.
We need to turn the lights on. You guys see that?
Yeah, since
All right, I'll walk everybody through here the income statement, balance sheet, and projected cash flow here for the next 6 months. You have a printed version of these that we can include in the minutes also. Just a quick frame of reference here. We have in the bar, in this column here, that's fiscal 2021, that was the year prior to the school being operational. Fiscal 21-22, which was the year that just finished, and then adjacent to that is the fourth quarter only. So I'll be talking about the results from the fourth quarter and see how it relates to the total year. So we had on the revenue side about under $1.7 million. 200,000 of that was raised locally through fundraising and charitable donations. Approximately $50,000 from the voluntary family ask, 25,000 from Coin Wars, and 110,000 from the William S. Knight matching grant. Is at the high level. The were some other proceeds that came in, but that gives you a flavor of what comprises that $200,000. The state sources were primarily the per pupil funding, the $9,200 per student. We had about $1,050,000 come in from that, and then approximately $335,000 flow in from the startup charter grant, and an additional $50,000 from a special ed grant, the IDEA flow through, and then we had some small dollars flow in from some federal aid.
What does 1.05 mm per pupil refer to?
Sorry, that's the per pupil aid. 1.05 million is the per pupil amount. So $9,201 per student for the quarter.
For the quarter.
On expenses, that's broken down into instruction-related expenses and then support services. So we had a little bit over $1 million in the fourth quarter. Primarily, this is payroll for staff and insurance-related expenditures. There are some outsourced services that we use in a couple of areas. I think Margaret mentioned she found somebody to visually impaired for this coming year. So that would be contained in instruction. On the support services side, about $623,000 for the quarter. And you can see the breakdown in the general categories. Most of the expense being rent is in the business administration category. That's why that's the largest of the three, or largest of the six, sorry. On debt service, we had a repayment of $50,000 on a long-term note. So that's predominantly what that was. You can see interest paid on term note and our line of credit during the quarter. And then as we scroll down a little bit further regarding facilities, acquisitions, and improvements, the biggest number is depreciation of the cost to get East renovated last summer. There was some funds that flowed through on the expansion of East, the modular systems, primarily engineering and permitting related items, and some expenses in programming of the one campus. So all said, we had total expenditures of $1.7 million, so slightly more than what we had revenue for the quarter. And then just a quick reconcile between UFAR and GAAP, UFAR being what the school financials use, because they have long-term debt proceeds as revenue and long-term principal as expenses. So if you factor those out, the quarter was essentially neutral on a GAAP basis.
So in the world of WUFAR, do they have any concept of a balance sheet that would be separate from the concept of an income statement? Because they seem to just glom everything together.
It's like a cash-based system.
Maybe that's a conversation for another time.
On the other side of the sheet that was printed, we have the balance sheet, and the balance sheet just shows the period end. So the end of the year was the end of the quarter. So you can kind of see where we ended the year. Total assets increased by about $350,000. Most of that being funds that were due in from the start of the charter grant, which we'll get in the first quarter of this year based on the timing of when that's paid. And then obviously we invested significantly in the renovation of East last summer. So we had a fairly large asset come onto the balance sheet last year as a result of that. On the liability side, we had $231,000 in accounts payable. Most of this was driven by the startup charter grant items that were to be paid in the new fiscal year. But also we had some expenses come at the end of the year, just when suppliers invoice us. The accrued payroll amount, the final payroll was paid out in early July, and we had medical insurance premiums that got paid out in July. So those expenses, to be realized in the income statement, had to find a home on the balance sheet temporarily. So those would get relieved pretty quick in the month of July. And then also we had deferred revenue from both the gala and the user fees. Technically, those were both, we don't recognize revenue on either of those things until we got into the new fiscal year, but cash came in the door prior to that. So that's what that deferred revenue amount shows as a current liability. And on the long-term liability side, we had $150,000 of additional private loans come in 21-22 to help improve liquidity of the school. So our balance at the end of the fiscal year was $250,000 for private loans too. So total improvement in overall equity for the school was $364,000 for the year. And I'll go to the last page, and then you guys can ask questions. Is a kind of projected cash flow. So the first table at the top is income statement related, and then this table below that would be the balance sheet. So in the first quarter, we show approximately $500,000 of net surplus, if you will, from revenues versus expenditures. So $505,627. And then in the second quarter, we have $220,000 of more expenditures than we do revenue. So for the first 2 quarters of the fiscal year, we're up $285,000 overall. On the balance sheet side of things, we have in the first quarter expected $400,000 term note coming in to help fund the mobile classrooms, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and $146,000 coming in from the startup charter grant that was showed as due from the state essentially in the other assets of the balance sheet. So beginning cash, we started the year at $733,000. We will pick up $272,000 over the course of the quarter, so we should end the quarter a tick over $1 million. And as it relates to the second quarter, we do have, as I mentioned, we have more expenses than revenue in that quarter. And then on so if you see like under debt service example, we'll be starting to repay our term note at $237,500, and we'll be repaying about $200,000 of the $250,000 private loans. So factoring those 2 items in, we expect our ending cash balance for the second quarter to be about $684,000. So, from a cash flow perspective, this is not tapping into our line of credit at all either. We're in a very good liquidity spot.
So could you just explain again and maybe underscore the top half of this page is income statement stuff?
Yep.
And the numbers with a negative sign in front of them, negatives usually are bad, but
Yep.
in this case it's almost the opposite
Yep.
way around. And that's a quirk of whoever invented accounting. It's not your fault. You just double explain that the negative there is actually a good thing.
The negative is a good thing. That's the way banks,
It
debits
has to
and
do with
credits.
debits and credits.
Yes.
Credits have a negative sign in front of them.
What's important if you look at the ending cash balance is that we're our beginning cash balance of $733, we're adding $272,000, so at the end of the first quarter, we'll be up $1 million. So a negative number would be our accounts going up, and a positive number would be our accounts going down.
Brian, was it a little bit unexpected that we had this 300 and what is it, $35,000 charter startup grant? Did we find out about that late?
No.
Or was that budgeted in?
That was budgeted in. There was a 5-year startup charter grant that we were approved for in October, November timeframe last year. Year one was $440,000. So in the fourth quarter, 335 of that is when we recovered it. In year two, so this fiscal year, we have $90,000. And then year 3 and 4, 75, 75, and then year 5 would be whatever the balance is to get us to 750. I think it's like 120 or something like that. So no, that wasn't a surprise. We didn't know about it going into the school year last year, but it was approved.
I was wondering if that, it was only $29,000 off from the improvement in overall equity, so I thought maybe that came in kind of as a surprise, and that's what pumped it up so high.
Well, no, one of the nice surprises was the increase in the per pupil funding from the $8,800 number to the $9,200 number. So that was a big bonus. And of course, just bringing in more funds from charitable donations and coin wars and fundraising, things like that, that helped overall. Also, I would say, Margaret kept the belt pretty tight on expenditures for the most part, so it came in. The expenses ended up coming in quite a bit lower than what we were thinking they were going to be in the October timeframe.
Yep.
We continued to trend down on expenditures.
The other question is the $110,000 William S. Knight matching grant that came in, looks like in Q4. Would it be a true statement that we effectively maxed that out, or did we leave money on the table?
No, we have the first tranche of money, and Dan can speak to this if you'd like to chime in here, but
Sure.
The first tranche was $250,000 in total. We had to raise that money by August 1st, so the remaining $150,000, I guess would be $140,000 we've submitted as a result of proceeds from the gala. So we should be seeing that money flow in, this quarter.
So there's actually two parts, Part A and Part B, to the William S. Knight Challenge Grant. Each are $250,000. So the $110,000 was just the first ask for reimbursement against Part A. The second portion of Part A, we actually just asked for it today. And then we have the Part B, which is another $250,000. And we have yet to make any requests for reimbursement against Part B.
Remind me when that one needs to be done by, is that August somewhere?
So it's Part A was from December through August 31st, 2022, and Part B goes from September 1st through August 31st of 2023. So I've suggested that our friends from the William S. Knight Foundation come and visit us again before the end of the year. They did last year, November, December timeframe. So we've got a lot to show them. We'll have a lot to show them about our current physical site. And the Part A grant was really going towards our immediate expansion of capacity enrollment. So we'll have a lot to show them from a year ago or 9 months ago. In addition, we can show them a little bit about our plans for the future as well. So they've been very generous. We really wouldn't be here without them. And we'll see what the future holds. as far as what else we may ask for or they can grant in the future. But they've been extraordinarily generous to us, and we're very thankful for them.
Sure.
Okay, any other questions for Brian before we move on?
Well done, Brian, thank you.
Thank you.
In October, we really didn't know how to separate one-time expenses from ongoing expenses, so we were a little conservative.
Yep.
Which is probably good that we didn't go the other way. But
Yeah.
it's turned out to be more positive than what we thought back then. Now we have all kinds of tools like an accounting system, accountants, all kinds of things.
Or all sorts of things, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so moving on to action items. The first item we have is, I just noticed a little typo there, revised and updated special education policies and procedures. Margaret.
I shared with you last week, or you should have received a copy of the updated special education policies and procedures. We post that document on our website. The only changes and updates to that document reflect corrections to employee names, contact information. We had not updated it since before the school year started last year, so my position and some of our new hires are now reflected in the revisions of that document. And I'd like to place that revised and updated version onto our website, and I'm asking for board approval on those minor changes.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the revised special education policies and procedures policy?
Tim Peterson will make a motion to approve the special education policies and procedures, noting that they're relatively minor, mostly in name.
Second?
I'll second.
Brian, okay. Any further discussion?
Thank you for keeping it updated. I thought it was very well done. I didn't quite have time to double check all of the Wisconsin statutes referenced herein.
Right?
But I will take your word for it.
And there are many of them.
It's pretty heavy stuff.
And thank you, Emily. While you're on too, absolutely.
It's very good stuff. Very, very good.
As well as the next one.
Actually, we have to vote on it, right?
We do.
Yep, we do. So everyone in favor of approving the revised special education procedures and policy? Am I saying that right? Policies and procedures, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. Okay. Yes, next item up is the revised and updated 50488 policy.
The same is true for this policy. It's a policy that we post on our website and had not been updated since the start of last school year. So again, it needed to have the contact information and employee titles and names corrected and updated to reflect some new positions this school year. And so again, very minor clerical updates and revisions, and I'm requesting approval so that I can get the updated version posted to our website before the start of the school year.
I'll move approval of the revised ADA policy as presented.
Second,
Second by Tim.
any discussion? Pretty straightforward. Okay. All in favor of approving the section 504 ADA procedural handbook as revised, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. Okay. On to the 22-23 employee handbook.
Thank you. So also, for your review, you received an employee handbook, something we did not previously have. The new controller, Lori Kari, and I worked to write this handbook after consulting handbooks of other districts, handbooks of area private schools, as well as a Hillsdale model or sample. We then consulted with our legal counsel and we're pleased with her approval. She had no edits, recommendations, or changes to give and gave us her approval and recommendation to move forward with the handbook as written. So I respectfully request that you vote to approve the 2022-2023 employee handbook.
So motion by Tim.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I'll just comment that Margaret spoke briefly and quickly, but her brevity belies the amount of time and effort I'm sure that went into this endeavor. And Jennifer Williams, who's our legal counsel, ringing endorsement of it was certainly comforting to the board and indicative of your efforts, so thanks.
Ready for a vote? Alright, all in favor of approving the revised and updated, brand new,
Yes, brand new.
employee handbook for 2022-2023, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nay? And the motion passes. And the last item for action items tonight is the revised and updated LCCA accounting policies and procedures. And Brian is going to present that.
I submitted a red line of the changes to the board and had solicited some input from Lori and Margaret on this. Primarily the changes are just clarifying names and titles. There were a few sections that some, I wouldn't say substantive, but a couple of edits that were made. So in section 2.2, we had recommended moving to requiring a second signature on approving checks in excess of $2,000. Below $2,000, all checks will be approved by Margaret. And that second person would be one of the assistant principals. In 5.1, we clarified that moving forward, the controller or head principal will be reporting actual to budget to the board in the board meetings. That will be me. In 7.1, from a cash management perspective, you would look to see something similar to what was just presented here, where we're looking at what we expect our cash changes to be quarter by quarter, so we can get an overall feel for school liquidity. So that was added to section 7.1. 8.1, school budgeting. We've had some discussion about this over the last few months, but this just clarifies the expected timeline on and the process for how we budget each year, with the preliminary budget being due in March, a revision being presented to the board in June, and then a final budget would be final in October after all the student counts are in from September. And last, in 11.3.4, this was to clarify that gift cards cannot be distributed to employees or volunteers. So that's it. So we have those 5 additions, plus clarifying that Lori is the controller of the school and Eric is the assistant principal at West, and I'm the school board treasurer.
Okay, should we move to approve this and then discuss? Is that best? Someone like to make a motion to approve the revised and updated LCCA accounting policies and procedures?
So motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion.
So I've got a question on 2.2.2 for the second approval for checks in excess of $2,000. How exactly would that approval be implemented?
So on the bank side, there would need to be a signature block for checks where 2 signatures are required for checks that are larger than $2,000. So those names and titles and signatures would have to be on record with the bank. And we would pay a nominal fee for them to handle the administrative work of that. It's like $12 a month.
So you're gonna change the check stock to require 2 signatures on a check?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's cumbersome, but might be prudent.
Go ahead, Margaret.
It's a recommendation we received from Todd Gray, who we've consulted with on some business matters, and it's I think he would describe it as a checks and balances process that most auditors look to see. And so in the auditing process, we would be better set if we had a dual signature process for a certain amount of dollars on a check.
Just as a frame of reference, in last fiscal year, we wrote 150 checks that were $2,000 or larger. We wrote 67 checks that were $5,000 or larger. I expect check runs to be streamlined going into this year, where we'll be doing them less frequently. So instead of running them every week, it might be twice a month. So from the administrative side, and if the second approver is on site, then it should flow relatively seamless. If you think about 150 checks over the course of a year, it's really only 10 or 12 checks a check run. So it's not like you're sitting there signing your name for 15 minutes.
No, that's fine. I think it's very common to have approvals, multiple approvals required for certain amounts, but it's a different matter to actually have to have 2 signatures on an actual check. It's kind of a very old-fashioned way of doing it. Typically, you'd have like internal communications where you would require, before the check signer signs a check, you'd have 1 or 2 other people approve the expenditure. You'd have people double checking invoices, so on and so forth. With electronics and this thing called email, we now have an ability to do all that with great paper trail. And to have all of that auditors look at, where you don't actually have to have 2 people signing a physical check and having to get the bank, to be involved with that. But if that's the way we want to do it, I'm completely fine with that. I just thought that was a little bit archaic, but I'm completely fine with it.
It's all an automatic system. Like, it's a stamp of our signatures. It is electronic in the sense that we click a box. So we're not actually signing checks. We're giving approval electronically to our cash check system through the bank, and it's all approved and then flows out that way. So in that way, it is a little bit more modern than not.
It is pretty standard practice that the double signature at some threshold. I'm in favor of the double signature. I think the threshold could be higher. I think a $5,000 threshold is more appropriate. You referenced that would cut the volume approximately in half, based at least on last year's, and it kind of perhaps assuages your concern a little bit, Dan, in that.
No, if it's automated, that's fine. They're just using a different process. They're actually using the check itself as the way to get multiple approvals, as opposed to the way large organizations would do it outside of education, is you have multiple approvals, but you don't have it on the check, and you don't involve the bank. It's an internal financial control process. So if we want to utilize the bank and the signing of the check as part of a multiple approval process, I'm completely fine with that. And so I don't have a problem with the $2,000 limit. I was just kind of surprised to see it. I get it now. I understand.
I wouldn't have an issue with $5,000 either. It's in terms of other policies and authorities that Margaret has when deviate from an approved budget with 5,000 being the threshold, that kind of is a trigger that you're making a conscious decision of, is this a budgeted expense or not? Because if it isn't, then it needs another signature. So there's another set of eyes on it. So I would be open to a friendly change, $5,000 instead of $2,000.
I would recommend 5,000, largely because of the timing it has to the point you just made, where checks that go out are for budgeted expenses. If something is not in the budget and it has a cost in excess of $5,000, Margaret or school administration must bring that to the board for approval. If it's within the budget, Margaret's authority is up to $5,000. She doesn't need to double check because the board's already approved it. So I just think it makes sense to sync that $5,000 figure with the pre-existing policy of approval of non-budgeted expenses greater than 5,000. And it just cuts down on bank oversight and bank fees.
So now we're getting to a whole different topic, which is financial controls. So now we have to ask, so where is the check stock? Who holds the check stock? Do you have other safeguards with the bank approving a payee or not? And somebody, yeah, positive pay. Can somebody just take check stock now and sign a check? You know, I mean, these are all internal financial controls matters, right?
Yep, and I think that's a good recommendation on going back and adding some details there, because I don't have an answer for you. I don't know how that's being administered inside of the school right now.
Are you saying you'd like to see those things codified in the
If you're
policy?
going to increase the number from 2,000, then we need to have a bunch of additional internal financial controls in place.
Why?
Because that's typical. You can't have a person take check stock out of the cupboard, sign it, and cash a check for $4,999 and, go on vacation. Because that could happen.
That could happen now.
No. I don't know if it could or not.
If it's in the budget, it could.
No, maybe not. Depends on how private pay is set up at the, or what's it called, positive pay.
Positive pay.
There's all kinds of safeguards in place in the banking system where that couldn't happen today.
And they're
So the way it works in other organizations is you can't spend a penny unless 2 other eyeballs are approving it before somebody signs a check. That's how it works in my company. I can't spend a penny. So this is a very complicated topic. And it's more than just how many people sign a check. I guess I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just trying to understand
No,
financial control.
I don't think that at all. I don't understand why the increase from 2,000 to 5,000 triggers all of that, is my point. Why wouldn't all of those same concerns be present with a $2,000 limit?
It's just a smaller number. And
Okay.
just-
So the issue is the same. It's just the
The level
chance,
of exposure.
the chance for
Right.
something
Right.
bad happening.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Well, we can push this matter back down to the finance committee to try and clarify how we want the financial control piece to read.
I think we should get something approved today because there's a whole bunch of changes in here that need to get implemented now. So I don't need to hold up
Or we
all
can
of this progress.
make sure it's an action item.
But yeah, I mean, just in the spirit of understanding financial controls, making sure it's modern, up to date, appropriate with standard procedures with peer schools and so forth, that we just maybe relook at it. But I would not hold off on approving something right now.
Okay.
And I would be happy to have Lori Kari, controller, present at the next board meeting to answer all questions and explain all the protocols that are in place. She would do it far more justice than I,
Okay.
and I'm confident she'd be able to answer your questions on those matters.
So are we leaving it the way it is, or are we gonna go to 5,000?
I feel comfortable leaving it the way it is. This was well thought through by Margaret and Brian, and I just had some questions about it, and I don't have, with the explanations given, any problem with the way it stands. If we make changes, that's where it starts to get more complicated for me. So I would recommend leaving it how it is, with what I know now.
I'm fine with that. It's, you can always come back and change it later
Can go back to the
if
committee and
that's the
discuss that
general
section.
sentiment.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Any thoughts or comments on any other
Oh, yeah. Oh,
sections?
one other just small minor comment I had to that gift card section with
Yes.
gift cards. Just to clarify, that's, the school cannot issue a gift card. The TLC committee is a separate entity altogether, so if they can still do gift cards for like teacher appreciation week and things like that, correct?
Yes.
This is completely separate of that.
That's correct. This
Yes.
is for the school.
So last December, when we did the gift card appreciation to staff,
Right. It should be.
that would have to, because I guess I'm gonna ask a question, and I'm glad you brought it up. Is it the $100 threshold that's the issue? Because it has to be reported as income, or is there some other concern?
It's anything over $25.
Okay, it's
And
25.
because at that point it has to be reported as income to the IRS, which means our employees would have to report it, we would have to
Sure.
claim it, and so best practices would be that anyone who volunteers is thanked with some type of tangible thank you gift, and not given any
No, but
form of
again,
cash.
I just, maybe I missed something in the correspondence. I thought the threshold was 100, leaving us perhaps free to do it for a lesser amount, but
I
it's,
can double check, I believe it's anything over 25.
that's fine.
I think over the years, that number has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller,
Right.
unfortunately. That's why this is a bigger problem today than it was 10 years
There
ago.
are 87,000 people who will take a new interest in that.
That's right.
No, that's fine. I was unclear as to what the threshold was.
Yeah.
I mean, to be clear, our accounting policies, procedures were our first attempt as a school. They were approved, authorized by DPI. So there's nothing that we have done in the past that was wrong. We're just clarifying some things as we learn and evolve.
Absolutely.
No, it's good. Good stuff.
So, no other questions for Brian at this point? Okay. All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the revised and updated LCCA accounting policies and procedures. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. On to treasurer's report. Brian, do you have anything additional to,
Yes, tired of hearing me talk tonight.
Never.
I'll keep it pretty brief. Just some things that had transpired over the last couple of weeks. I had mentioned in the last meeting that we had sent a financial package to the banks for increasing our line of credit and also requesting a term note for the modular classrooms and the happy report. We got a financial letter today from Washington State Bank for a $500,000 line of credit and a $400,000 term note.
Awesome.
So, we have, it literally just got it, so we have to review the terms and work through with them, but barring anything unforeseen, we should have this in place in a couple of weeks. So, that will substantially improve the overall liquidity of the school.
It was an increase of 500,000?
From $250,000 to $500,000.
And a $400,000 term loan.
Correct.
And do they have any requirements on the use of proceeds of the term notes?
Well, it would be used to pay Vesta and Hunsinger and the modular systems, but I haven't gotten through all the details of the term sheet yet, so we can go over that.
No, you can't use it, Dan.
So I think it would be appropriate, I don't know what our bylaws say, but I think it would be appropriate, given the magnitude of indebtedness that we're taking on, although this is a absolutely wonderful blessing and great news, that I think the board should approve this. When we scrub it and polish it up.
Yeah, I don't know what the bylaws say specifically either, Dan, but just given the magnitude of the amount, I think it's appropriate.
So we'll have to get the loan security agreement to a place where we're comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's doable.
I mean, I think we could call a special board meeting and get something approved very, very quickly if we needed to, but I think there's a little bit of work to do behind the scenes on the details.
Yes, there are.
So we have a little bit of time, but not a lot of time.
Outside of that, cash on hand at the end of July was $441,000, about $110,000 better than what we had expected at the end of June, largely driven by the outstanding performance from the gala and a couple other small items. So that's good. The 22-23 budget that was approved in the last board meeting is being uploaded in the Skyward. So we would expect in the next board meeting that the actual budget will be a Skyward generated report. CISA 5 and Riley Penner Benton, the independent CPA firm that's auditing the week of September 12th, will be reconciling those items to make sure that everything is dialed in. So that's all I have.
Thanks again, Brian and Lori, too, for all you've done to negotiate with Waukesha and securing that safety net for us, which is very, very important. Okay. On to committee reports. Facilities and Finance, Tim Peterson. Give a little update on your last committee meeting and where things are with the mobile classroom project.
You bet. So we've been working hard at it, and things are moving along as well as could be expected. We knew there would be delays. There have been delays. Then there have been chances for us to get things done ahead of time, and then they're dashed by other government bureaucracy. But we applied for an early state review, which we were then told is not something that they offer, even though apparently it was online when we did our application, and something that we thought we really needed to meet the deadline. So we sent letters and sent people to talk to the state. Didn't hear anything and thought, okay, we're just gonna have to wait for the standard review date, which was really late. And then all of a sudden, we get an email that says, we've honored your request and we'll be starting your review immediately. And so we're jumping for joy. And then we get their first report back and they're asking for things that we have never seen them ask for in a mobile classroom environment, which just befuddles us. But we put all the engineers to task to answer the questions, and they submitted their first round, and we're looking for the response to that. And they've told us that we need to do a special review for our plumbing because we have a lot of fixtures, which is a good thing. Kids are going to have plenty of good plumbing in there for toilets and so forth. But that's something that's going to take some time. So all in all, we don't know when we're going to be done because we're waiting on approvals, but we got the early start, so we should be doing trenches and, well, actually, first we have to do the piers, and we were all set to do the piers beginning yesterday, but we got a note back, as I indicated, that they wanted more engineering numbers at a much higher level of detail than we expected. So the folks at Vesta, the supplier of the mobile classrooms, know that anything we do during the early start process is what they call at risk, meaning we can start early, but they reserve the right to say, hey, you know, in the review process, you didn't do this, you need to have this, and oh, by the way, this thing just doesn't meet the engineering requirements of the state. So Vesta now has retracted, and they don't want to get started on the piers in the early start until they have a better indication that the whole thing's going to go through. So that's potentially setting us back possibly a week or two. We don't know yet, but you know, there's ups and downs. The good news is the electric control panel, which other companies are having a heck of a time securing sourcing materials for, particularly when it's this large of an energy draw. We have through our general contractor, have a great electrical subcontractor that was able to put it in, make it work. It was inspected today, and Wisconsin Energy says they'll be able to electrify it, turn on the electricity probably next week, which will be ahead of the time that we'll have the trailers ready to accept all of that. So the bottom line is we expect to do, I'm working with Vesta to try to assure them that everything's going to be fine. They should tell their managers to relax, that we're going to meet all the specifications, and we should start drilling and pouring the piers immediately so that we can then dig the trenches and then place the trailers. And the bathroom trailer should be on its way here very shortly. I've not heard of any further delays there, meaning that we could potentially meet our deadline. I wouldn't bank on it. I think there's going to be some back and forth with the state. I think there's going to be some back and forth on the plumbing. And then when it gets over to the city, who does the absolute final blessing for occupancy, there's likely to be a little bit of back and forth. But all in all, the project is going well. There's no major setbacks. In fact, I would say, reporting to you now, the best thing is that we did get an early start with the state, and that should put us on schedule or ahead of schedule. But it changes day to day and within the day, and it's causing me to lose sleep. But and I want to give just a ton of credit to John Heller, who's, oh my gosh, what we would have done without him, I don't know. Talk about a blessing to come in at the right time with the experience and development to be able to deal with all of these engineers and help me keep an eye on the project schedule and know the contractors to get really quality engineers that understand timelines and line up the resources, because, you know, John's getting all these people prepped to say it's going to happen in this timeline. Man, we gotta hit that deadline when it happens. And these are big companies with big resources. You probably saw at the if anybody's been to East, I think today or yesterday, I think they brought in a wheeled loader and ready to do the trenching and so forth. So it's coming along. Crossing my fingers that we not have to be in a basement or any other facility any more than we need to.
The good news is we have a backup plan.
Yep.
That's the key.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely appropriate to
Thank you.
do that.
Thank you so much.
Also, finances and facilities update. I have for anybody, I'd like to hand these out. These are the flyers for the upcoming LCCA Sporting Clays fundraiser. That is to say, a a shooting sporting clays event over at Warden Valley on Saturday, September 17th. I hope that you'll pass it out to anybody that you know that would consider shooting a shotgun or teaching their kids how to shoot a shotgun. $92 event, and I'm in the process of talking to some sponsors and hoping we can accomplish two goals with that. One, bring in a little bit of extra revenue, and two, build the community support for parents getting together with kids doing recreation right.
Tim, I've just got one question on the mobile classroom project, and I apologize if I missed something, but you talked about Vesta's reluctance to begin the peers until the approval is in hand, and certainly that's understandable. But then you also said we're urging them to begin, so where does that stand? Are they going to begin or not?
We do need to have further discussion with them. I don't have a definitive answer for you on that. That's something that John and I are in the process of negotiating right now. I believe the answer is that something spooked them. Probably these latest engineering requirement specifications, and they're just hedging their bet because they know our schedule and they know that they're not going to hold it up significantly if they wait another day or week, because there is still some play with it, believe it or not. If all the other contractors come through, it's just tightening that window.
Just so clear, if we do begin prior to the approval and they make some modifications, we're on the hook for that. We will have to make.
We is correct. Both us, in fact, it would probably fall on us.
That probably
more so than Vesta.
Yeah, Vesta's not going to fund it if that were to happen.
Right.
So
part of it's prudence. And we can't blame them for holding back.
On the contrary,
we're trying to get to the absolute what is the concern, both by the state and by Vesta.
Got it.
But it's very technical stuff. I doubt there's anybody in this room that could really. I certainly couldn't articulate it. It's very technical, detailed engineering drawings and plans and tolerances, and it's very, very technical, and I'm mighty glad John's helping me so through this.
There was another school in Wisconsin that was recently went through this process, right? So there's something
They were
different.
not asked for this.
So there's something different about our site that
It is, we are more classrooms, more students. I think theirs was a 4-pod, if I'm not mistaken.
okay.
Or a 6, with expansion to 12, so it could be as simple as that.
Dan, don't you have a
So it's a
inspiring Aristotle quote for us?
Okay, any questions, any more questions?
And if anybody wants to see the Gantt chart, I update it probably weekly.
Well, I understand how tenuous this can be, so thank you for all your efforts.
We have a heck of a team. This stuff can't happen without financing. It can't happen without leadership direction. It can't happen without, founding support, parental, parents support that, know how important this is. The administration leadership of the school, of course. Parents that really care. Everybody, the experience on school boards. Everybody's necessary here. Really helpful.
Great, thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Moving on to the fundraising and communications committee update. We did not officially meet tonight, this evening like we normally do. We will resume those meetings next month. But just to give everyone a quick update on the Liberty Gala revenue and expenses and so forth, as we've gotten a little more clarity on that over the last couple of weeks. And as of right now, the gross revenue for the event is just slightly over $300,000. And there were some transaction fees that we did not have included in the budget, so that's why it's a little bit lower than we originally thought, but we're still slightly over $300,000. The expenses, total expenses for the event were $43,362.12. And then the total gross revenue from this event was $257,461.28. So that's as close to the penny as I can get at this moment, so I think we're really, really close.
So we're approximately $70,000 better than expected, or almost 50%
Yes.
better.
Yes. So thanks again to all the people who were involved and helping to make that a huge success. The sponsors, everyone who attended, our presenting sponsor, Cricket Bauer, just everyone and all the volunteers. There were so many volunteers that helped secure silent auction items and live auction items and taking pictures of everything. I mean, there was just so much that went into that event. So we're extremely, extremely grateful for everyone who's involved. So,
Absolutely. Hank was present, and that certainly
that
is a soft benefit of going into a loan committee meeting.
So, thank you. So yeah, I was just going to mention Tim's fundraiser as well, but he's already done that. So thank you. That's the next thing coming up next month. And any questions? Okay. So on to the president's report, and all I had to say was actually Margaret said a little bit earlier about Monday when everyone came back. First day that staff and faculty were back in the building, and I had the pleasure of being able to address them and welcome them back for year 2 of LCCA, and how much we as a board appreciate and are so excited to have them back here and teaching over 500 students this year. It's just amazing, truly amazing, and it's with Margaret and her team at the helm and this fantastic staff and faculty. Only great things are going to happen this year, and we're really excited to get going and look forward to year 2 of LCCA. So, thank you. And with that, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So motioned by Tim.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of?
Yes, I have a discussion item. Tom, what is the procedure if somebody wants to withdraw their support for a motion?
Well, first of all, there's an open motion on the floor, so we have to treat with that. And this is a non-agenda item, so
We'll talk about it
we
right
can't
after.
really talk about it in open session. We can talk about it and address your question, Tim, but we can't do it right now.
Yeah, we'll do it as soon as the meeting is officially closed. So, it was, so we're good. Let's take a vote. All in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. And the meeting is adjourned at 7:29 p.m.